Have you ever gone through something in life that's so awful, so tragic, that you don't even think you can get through it? Me too. My husband died 5.5 years ago. And if you told me that I'd be sitting here telling you how great my life is now, I'd tell you you're crazy. But I am. I'm living a really great, happy, amazing life. There's so much joy in my life right now. And I'd like to share my stories and hopefully give you some inspiration and hope if you're going through the worst of the worst. So if you want to hear some more, you want to be inspired, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'm going to give you some tips and things that have worked and helped me. My story started in 2014 when my husband was diagnosed with a rare blood disorder called amyloidosis. It was a long journey up to the diagnosis because it's very rare and it's hard to diagnose. So there were so many months of uncertainty, and even though it's not a great diagnosis, we were actually relieved to finally have a diagnosis. So if you're not familiar, amyloidosis is a blood disorder, and your plasma cells make a piece of protein, a type of protein that's broken. It can't be used by your body, so it just gets deposited on your organs. And initially my husband was experiencing neuropathy because the protein was on his nervous system, and it was very, very painful. But that just continued to get worse, and he also started losing his appetite. He had no energy, and we really definitely knew something was wrong. So like I said, in a way, that diagnosis was a bit of a relief. Now, my husband did tons of research, and when this possibility came up of this disease, he knew that it would require a bone marrow transplant, which he wasn't afraid of. And he also did some research to find where he could be treated, because it's so rare, not all doctors know how to treat it. So by the time we got those positive results, he already had a plan. Unfortunately, his plan didn't include chemotherapy, but his doctor's plan did. You see, the protein levels were too high to start the transplant immediately. For it to be successful, you need to go into the transplant with a lower level of protein. So he had about 3 or 4 months of grueling chemotherapy. And it wasn't until February of 2015 that he finally got the go-ahead that he could actually have the transplant. Who would have thought that getting a go-ahead for a bone marrow transplant was a good thing? But it was. So he was admitted to the hospital, went through some of the worst I'd ever seen him. As sick as he had been the previous year, he was sicker than I'd ever seen him before. It was scary. But the doctors assured me that was part of the plan. That was part of how these transplants work. So once the transplant actually happened and his body started accepting it and his count started rebuilding, we actually were pretty excited because it looked like, wow, this is working. And we felt like we were finally headed in the right direction. I left the hospital on April 21st, told him I'd see him tomorrow. I was gonna drive up again the next day. The hospital was about an hour and a half away. And I came home, I shared with friends and family how great he was doing, and I went to bed, excited to go up the next day and see him and see what great progress he had made. And at 4:50 in the morning, the phone rang, and it was the hospital, and it was a nurse. And she asked, she told me that my husband had been found unresponsive and that I needed to get to the hospital immediately. And I said, is he alive? And she said, yes, but it's very grave. You need to get here now. So I said, I didn't know if I could do that. I have 2 kids. They were sleeping. So I just hung up the phone and paced the house. It was still dark outside. I just didn't even know I didn't know what to do. Within 5 or 10 minutes, the phone rang again, and this time it was a doctor. and he told me he'd done everything he could, but that my husband was gone. And I remember saying to him, "Is this a dream?" And he said, "No, I can assure you this is not a dream." So I hung up the phone, and that's when the first book of my life ended. And now I'm in book 2, and 5.5 years into book 2. And I have to say, it's really pretty amazing. I'm really getting to the good parts. And I just want to be able to share some of my stories with anyone who's going through a time in their life where they think they can't crawl out, where they think it's unsurvivable. I've survived, and I'm living proof that you can move forward. You're never going to forget, you're never going to move on, but you can go forward. So if you want to hear some more, subscribe to my channel. I'm also on Instagram. It's just my name, Kelli Healed. And I hope I can give you some hope. Thanks for watching.